Hey, what's going on, RC drivers and Tamiya fans? Take a look at what we have in the workshop. It is the Tamiya VQS. This is the 2020 version of the Vanquish. And if you are a Tamiya nut, this is probably one you're going to want to have for your collection. Grab it while you can, because I know there's a lot of people out there that wish they could have the Vanquish, and this is the opportunity to grab something very similar and just kind of relive that fun you had back in your youth, or even experience what Tamiya has to offer today in this really cool four-wheel drive off-road buggy. Now, the Vanquish, the VQS, it was kind of thought of as the affordable version of the Tamiya Avanti, and the Avanti was just a super cool four-wheel drive buggy, really a kind of ahead of its time design-wise, you know, this thing has a lot of the same cues that buggy did, same kind of shape, same drivetrain layout and everything, just a bunch of different parts, molded arms on this versus linkage on the Avanti. We've got plastic shocks on this versus the aluminum on the Avanti. But this was a very cool kit in itself, and today as the VQS, I had a lot of fun building it up. It is a full build up kit. It actually took me a couple episodes of my wife's favorite TV show, built it in the kitchen actually, and you know, watched TV with her while I set this thing up, and I really had a great time doing it. A lot of cool stuff in the kit. Oh, you know, I'll tell you about the features in a minute. But you know, just a couple little things that I wanted to point out that I don't forget. One thing being, there's a couple jigs inside. So when you're building a differential, you use this little pin jig to help build the differential properly. When you're assembling the tie rods, they give you little jigs to put on the threaded rod to make sure that you build it correctly. And you know, just typical Tamiya fashion, where it's a fun build. And they think of these little things to kind of help you along and just make a great experience for your build. All right, now let's get into the buggy itself. One of the real cool factors here is, even though it is a kit, it does come with a painted body. So it comes black, the windshield is clear, which is super cool. You will have to go and cut out and put on the decals. Not too many in this kit, so it didn't take me long to decal this, but it does have that cool Vanquish look to it, and just with the VQS logo on the side now. It also comes with a driver. You have to paint him, put him in there, assemble him, of course. And the body is just held on with two clips. So unlike the Avanti, which had a Lexian dust shield, this does not have that. It just has the clear body, the simple body on top. Of course, has a similar looking wing, but a wing for downforce in the rear. And then it's got a plastic chassis in the center, where the Avanti had like a carbon fiber, or I believe it was actually fiberglass. I got to think back for a second there. You can correct me in the comments below. But this one has a plastic monocoque style of chassis. Actually more, I would say, like a tub style of chassis, because it's a tub with a top deck on there. But let me go over to the front. We got a big bumper to help with your bash sessions, and actually mounted to the front bumper is the sway bar mount. So that obviously helps with the handling, since it's a racing style of buggy, and that goes to the A-arms. And the A-arms are really cool because the axle actually kind of hangs down below it. It's got a brace over the center of the arm to go up over that axle, but a pretty well engineered arm. It's just really neat to look at. When you're assembling it, you take the extra time to look at all the details that the designer put into this, and it's just one of those worthwhile models. But what I really like is out right past the arm, the caster block is aluminum right from the factory, and just a perfect spot to have an aluminum caster block stock from the factory, because it is a high stress part. Just the way this thing is set up, I could see it high stress. So it's cool that they have that in there, and then it goes out to plastic steering knuckles. Now, this is kind of where I was, you know, I wish they did something else here, because the plastic steering knuckle, the arm on there that goes to steering linkage, very short, and it feels a little flimsy. So that's something I worry about if you're really going to go out and drive this thing, that you just watch out when you hit things. That thing, it looks a little fragile in my opinion. And same actually with the shock tower, really thin plastic shock tower. If you flip this thing over, I'd be a little concerned. But we've got oil-filled dampers up front, the CVA dampers, as Tamiya calls it. And actually, I do want to warn you about the shocks as well. The shock end screwed on very easily, and in fact, it actually just started spinning on the shock, so it's not a really tight fit there. So I just want you to be aware of that. Might be nitpicking a little bit because I think a lot of people are just going to build this up as a shelf queen, but those of you that do want to go and drive it, I want you to be aware of things to look out for. Right behind it is the swinging steering rack. Very cool in my opinion. It's got a carbon fiber Ackerman plate that connects the cranks there. The servo saver is on top of the servo, and I went and used a high-tech 645 MW, which should be plenty of torque for this, but we've got adjustable tie rods. You do need to pop them off to adjust everything. But at least it does have that. And actually, while I'm kind of talking about the servo does have one metal bracket to mount it, and it allows for some adjustability there. The tub itself, pretty simple. The battery mounts in or goes in from the bottom, so this door pops out. There's two little clips on top that allow you access so you don't have to pull the body off, but pretty simple setup there. I think it's fairly well balanced. We've got the motor over here, we've got most of the electronics over on the opposite side, so I think it balances things out pretty well. But let me go to the back now and talk about the rear suspension. So we've got the oil-filled shocks on the rear. They're a bit larger than the front shock, and then we have molded plastic arms, and they're a trailing style of arm. And again, very cool. Just kind of kicks you back to the days when when the original Vanquish came out, when the Avanti came out. Instead of metal turnbuckles and stuff, these are plastic, but they seem pretty robust. I think they're going to handle some abuse back there if you do drive it. We got plastic hub carriers out back. The rear tie rods are adjustable. Again, they give you a jig to set everything up. But it also has a sway bar in the rear just to help keep everything in check. Then we've got this big, huge bumper out back as well. That's very cool. Plastic shock tower and plastic wing mounts. But let's move on to the drivetrain. I haven't talked about the drivetrain yet. So this actually has 3 differentials in it. We've got orbital, or I call them planetary, but I see people call them orbital differentials in the front. So orbital in the front, orbital in the rear, and really small gears on the inside. They look like they're really well machined. Hopefully they hold up if you're running any hotter motor than this. I think it'll be fine if you're running this motor, but there's some small teeth inside those gears. And then we have your series of gears that transfers everything, throughout the 4-wheel drive drivetrain in this. And let me just point out that up front there are universals, same in the rear. So that's really cool that they give you universal drive shafts with this. In the center is the propeller shaft that goes to the center differential. Now the center differential is a ball differential. It is a adjustable ball differential. Just kind of neat how they use the 2 different styles of diffs in here, so it gives a little bit of slip if you want to, and definitely transfers that power the way you want to in a racing vehicle. I think that's just really, really cool. There are mostly ball bearings throughout this kit. It's not a full kit of bearings. There are a couple of very small bushings in there that I think you could go and replace. Maybe Team Fast 80 Bearings has it, or to me it probably has it as well. But it's not a full bearing kit. There are some bushings throughout it, but overall it was a really, really fun build. I really enjoyed it. Not having to paint the body, that was pretty awesome in my book. Just having the decal, was a lot easier to get this thing finished up. The only other thing I want to talk to you guys about before we go out and drive it is the tires. So we've got these, super gripper tires on here with these just crazy pins on it, and it's mounted to white rims. We've got a narrow rim in the front for a 4-wheel drive setup, and then the wider tire and wheel in the back. But man, I didn't even glue these things. The compound is just so hard on them. I just tore apart my fingers getting them on there, and it just brought me back to the days when I was a kid trying to get these tires on, and it just mangled my fingers, and it just, as soon as I was putting these on, it just brought me back. And that was the cool factor. That's what Tamiya does. It just gives you memorable experiences. All right, guys, it's time for me to go drive this thing. I've just been dying to try it out. Of course, we're gonna get it dirty, so let's go have some fun. let's just do a little bit of a parking lot bash here with the VQS. Just kind of old school, ripping around the dirt. This thing was fun over at the BMX track. And it's just cool to drive these things around. That's top speed there with the included 540 silver can motor. I think I forgot to mention in the earlier part that it does come with the speed controller as well. It's the brushless version that comes on a bunch of Tamiya kits, and it works well here too, get you going. But I just kind of love that old school chirp from the Tamiya vehicles. The steering on this is pretty impressive too. A little bit more power in this thing. Maybe if you threw like a 13.5 in here, or even a 17.5, a little bit more power, I think the fun factor would really bump up. But if you like that vintage feel, that silver 540 can motor feel, this definitely gives it to you. Kicks up a little dirt with those spike tires. See how tight it turns. Look at that. That's pretty good. Pretty tight. Yeah. Just the look of this thing is pretty awesome. One of my buddies showed up at the BMX track and he wanted to take this thing home. Just remembers it, wanting it when he was a kid. And he said he's definitely gonna order one. Or at least I think I talked him into ordering one. Very cool buggy. All right, guys, that's enough of just ripping around. Let's head back to the workshop and we could talk about the performance and overall detail of the VQS. So I could just about remember back when I started in RC, seeing the Tamiya Vanquish and wanting it. I thought it was super cool. And now that I finally have one here in 2020 with the VQS, I wish I had it sooner. It was so much fun to build up, so much fun to drive. Just kind of brought me back to the days when I started with my Tamiya Falcon and racing against a bunch of other Tamiya vehicles. And yes, we did run 2-wheel drives and 4-wheel drives together. You know, just seeing this thing out there just brought so many cool memories back, and it's just a great overall experience. I keep saying that about Tamiya vehicles every time I review a re-release or even some of the stuff today. It's a great experience building it up and getting to drive it, and just the unique factor of these vehicles, I mean, really makes them something special. And this buggy here, it's got some really cool design features, the engineering on it. Just from that factor alone, if you kind of geek out on that type of stuff, I think you're really going to enjoy this. Whether you knew about the Vanquish or you're just an RC fan now looking to collect stuff, I mean, this is something very cool to have on the shelf and even drive it as well. So over there at the BMX track, that's actually where I started racing RC. We carved a track basically into the center of the BMX track. They allowed us to do it, and we ran there, and that's where I ran my Falcon. But that's where I had a great time driving this thing, just over the bumps and jumps that are there. It didn't get a ton of air. I mean, it's powered with the stock 540 motor that comes with it and the ESC. I think it's powered just enough to where you could just have fun with it. You know, it gets some air off the jumps. It definitely goes through the corners and spits some dirt off the tires and stuff. The fun factor here is just kind of hearing that drivetrain chirp a little bit and, you know, zigzagging around in the dirt. I just kind of sat back and had fun watching this thing drive. It actually handles really well. These plastic shocks did just fine when it was landing off of a jump. It's definitely manageable through corners. What's really cool is, you know, watching the tires kind of scrape the ground, and I just had a great time with it. That's what it comes down to. I did actually crash it. I scraped up the body, which is not something I wanted to do. I wanted to keep this thing kind of pristine, but I pushed it a little too far and did flip it over, so it is scratched up, but you know, not too much damage here other than some scrapes and some dirty shock caps. Remember how the dirt always got caught in the knurled shock caps? You know, I got to go clean that out, but you know, the shocks didn't pull out of the ends like I thought might have happened when it would crash. The steering knuckles held up, so those things that I was worried about, it doesn't seem to be an issue. Doesn't seem to be any extraordinary wear. I did hear a little bit of squeaking going on, but that's kind of the Tamiya experience as well. Not sure if it was coming from the suspension or the bearings, but this is a very cool car. I mean, whether you're a collector or you want to relive some memories where, you know, maybe you wanted this or had this, it is a great buggy to have. Not exactly sure what the pricing is on it because it's not out yet and I couldn't find any street pricing on it, but I will definitely try to update it in the description below so you guys can find that information out later on down the road. But again, guys, you want something cool for your RC collection, the VQS, it's got some great engineering behind it. It's a fun build and it's a fun drive as well. The only thing I do want to throw out is make sure you get the right battery pack for it. It does need a battery pack that has the leads come out of the center. That's the only way it really fits into the chassis. It does take a LiPo, but again, those leads have to come out of the center of the pack. All right, that's my take on the VQS. Let me know what you think about this buggy in the comments section below. While you're there, hit that subscribe button and the notifications bell. Throw the video a like, and we'll see you back soon for some more RC driver videos.